Gentlemen, before I start, I'd like to personally endorse the wonderful accolades that Brian Wickham received last night, both for this conference and for his monumental activities for the Irish cattle breeders. I've really enjoyed the last 4 days. There have been, I'm sure you'll agree, some fantastic technical papers. And Brian, in his construct of the conference, has wisely included some papers in the final day on organisational structures, and I think we'd all agree that as good as the technology may be, it can only maximise its contribution to livestock productivity if it's embedded within structures that are appropriate to the particular industries in which that technology is offered. And so my brief today is to talk a little bit about the structure of beef breeding services in a number of countries in what I call the New World, or the territory in my paper. I'm sure we'd agree also that the goals of beef breeding programs, be they in Europe or in the New World, do need to encompass improving the quality and the quantity of performance recording, the use of sound genetic evaluations and subsequent genetic improvement that derives from those evaluations, and where appropriate, international collaboration in promoting these goals. And of course, the statutes of ICAR support these general principles as we do. Now, a little bit about the territory in which I am going to provide you with some statistics. It includes Southern Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, USA, and South America. And they are countries in which I have personally worked and have some experience. And there are also countries in which the organisation of beef breeding services has some similarities between countries, and in which the organisation is dissimilar to many European countries. Just going through the territory, the aggregate cattle population across the yellow parts of the globe adds to 566 million cattle, which is around 40% of the total world cattle population. Commercial beef production in the territory is largely unsubsidised, quite different to what we've seen in our field visits here yesterday, due largely to the size and extensive nature of the enterprises. 90% of the breeding in commercial herds is by natural service, and so the seed stock industry tends to be producing bulls. There would be at least 60 breeds across this area that have recording services and genetic evaluations, and that distinguishes the territory from dairy genetic evaluation services, for example, where maybe 6 or 7 breeds are involved. The recording of pedigrees and performance and genomics testing is predominantly undertaken by breed associations. Breed associations really have taken the initiatives as part of their overall services to members. There's a wide diversity of services in the genetic evaluation area across the countries involved. In virtually all those countries, there would be existing within breed, within country genetic evaluations. There are a crossbreed within country evaluations, and we heard a little bit about that from Alison with the developments of the services from the US Simmental Association. Within breed, across country evaluations is probably the predominant form of analysis. That, for example, is an analytical procedure that BreedPlan has used for 22 years. And we will see the emergence of a cross-breed, across-country evaluations in the near future. Most of the organisations that are involved in genetic evaluations require several runs per year. The BreedPlan service, for example, tends to run on a monthly basis. The American Angus Society, in fact, brings the updating of EPDs with genomic information to its customers on a weekly basis. Across-country evaluations, as I've mentioned, are common in this territory for over 20 years, and genomics information is progressively being introduced into the evaluation services. What I've tried to do in this table is to give you a helicopter view of the size of the industries, the size of the seed stock industry, who runs the pedigree services, and who runs the genetic evaluation services. Now, in doing this, I have had to harmonise the sources of information to make them roughly comparable. An example of this, for example, would be that some countries report the activities of their breed associations in the number of active females in the inventory. Others report the number of registered cattle in the herd book for the last 12 months. And other countries report the number of herd book cattle plus other cattle that are put on file for seed stock purposes. So I've used the approach of amalgamating the statistics on annual beef cattle recorded as being the seed stock that are recorded on databases of breed associations, including herd book cattle and other cattle that are available for seed stock purposes that may not be in the herd book. So from the top, the Latin American countries run about 404 million cattle. Half of those are located in Brazil. The statistics in Brazil for registrations within the 9 breeds that are members of ABCZ, which is the Zebu-based collaborative organisation in Brazil. Those statistics are quite precise. In other countries, a little harder to get, but my best estimate is that the total number of registrations is about 880,000. And the reason that I use this figure is that it's the best indication of the size of the seed stock industry. In Brazil, who runs the pedigree software? Well, breed associations have, in many cases, written their own software, and other commercial agencies provide contract services into that market. In the genetic evaluation service providers, it's very diverse. There are a number of commercial agencies, universities, BreedPlan, and government agencies. In Brazil, for example, there are at least 8 different service providers, and in fact, for some breeds, their data goes to more than one service provider. So that's a very competitive industry. The United States, total cattle numbers around 90 to 94 million at the moment, as Robert Williams mentioned in one of his papers, that that's back to the levels of 1956. My best estimate of the number of recorded seed stock is 865,000, and that's derived from 660,000 herd book animals that are reported by the National Pedigree Livestock Council, factored up by those breeds who are not members of NPLC, and then factored up by seed stock that are not in the herd book but are recorded for performance purposes. Breed associations write their own software. American Angus would be a good example of that. Commercial agencies are in the market, and ILR, which is International Livestock Register, is the product that comes out of the ABRI, and that has a strong place in the market as well. For those of you who were able to hear Alison's talk on the first day about the state of performance recording in the US, you'll have noted that 4 universities initially made major contributions to genetic evaluation in the US. 2 have since vacated that space, but the space has been very rapidly filled by the private sector with the recent development of Angus Genetics Inc., which is a sub-company of the American Angus Association that provides genetic evaluation services not only to Angus but to a number of other breeds. American Simmental has entered the market, again, not just for its members but for other breeds. GPS is a breed association-driven service. Breed Plan has a strong place in the market, and 2 of the universities are continuing to provide services. So again, it's a very diverse and competitive market for genetic evaluation services, and I think that that's a healthy situation. In Australia, cattle numbers around 30 million, 190,000 seed stock are recorded each year, all on ILR and all on Breed Plan. In Southern Africa, including South Africa, Namibia and Zimbabwe, where I've been able to get some statistics, the cattle population is around about 21 million, and my best estimate from various sources is that 173,000 calves meet the criteria that I've used in setting up these other numbers. Canada, the service providers are ILR and Indigenous, and Breed Plan, the same thing. The market's divided between those 2 service providers. Canada, 13 million, 142,420, quite precise because their statistics are quite precise. And ILR and commercial agencies, Breed Plan, US provides a lot of evaluations in Canada, together with Canadian agencies, and New Zealand, 4 million, and I put beef cattle only because their industry is dominated by dairy cattle, 36,000 ILR and Breed Plan. So out of all that, we have 2.3 million seed stock cattle that are recorded in the territory. So I now have to move quickly, I'm told. I think that the important thing to remember is that breed associations, when they first started, provided mainly for the membership and the herd book. They now provide for a much wider range of services, whereas this was 100% of their income 30 years ago. It's now becoming a less important part. Here is my estimate of the gross income available to breed societies in the territory, and the purpose of doing this is to indicate the investment potential of those breed associations for genetic evaluation services. So if we take the 2.3 million and multiply it by 70, we get a gross income across the territory of 160 million. And $70 per registration is a precise figure that comes out of a benchmarking survey that's been conducted across the Australian industry for 18 years. When I wrote the first draft of the paper, then The chairman said $70 sounds a lot of money per registration, but I think it's important to realise that that's the income source of breed associations, of which registration activity is becoming a smaller component. The American Angus Association, for example, has a gross income of $37 million. 21% of it comes from its services, from membership and registrations. It's one of the most successful beef cattle associations in the world because it diversifies its services. And its income, and it's half of the American industry, is not $70 but $125 per registration. So I'm going to use this $160 million figure as part of my paper and my rationale for what happens in the region. With that sort of money per year, you can understand that breed associations have a huge resource, financial resource, to drive their genetic evaluation technology. Some choose to co-invest with other breed associations to address the needs of industry-wide competition improvements, and others, like breed associations in Australia and New Zealand, co-invest with other breed associations and industry funds, such as the MLA, to drive their genetic improvement program. Quickly, I want to just give you...
Can you come to the conclusions?
Yeah.
Otherwise we run out of
Oh, that's right.
program.
Okay. Very quickly, I want to give you a case study for collaborative genetic evaluation for Hereford across Canada, America, Argentina and Uruguay. This is a project that is in full production and evaluates Hereford cattle across those 4 countries on a common basis. The number of animals involved is 5.7 million, and the breeding values are generated for 1.9 million dams. So the size of the database is a huge database for regular evaluation, and my point is that the whole of that activity, the research and development, the production costs, are all funded by the 4 participating breed associations. And so this model is quite different to the interbeef model that we've discussed on the first day. The evaluation is done not for one tray, but a full range of production trays across the 4 countries, and it will now have genomic enhanced EBVs, and it will be run in production on a regular basis. So,
Thank you.
I'll hand over to Peter.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Richard.